guys, I'm Abra Gilman and I'm from Collins Computing. And first, I just wanted to say thank you so much for voting my session in. I appreciate the community and everybody taking time to vote. And what you guys voted to hear about is that Microsoft is actually putting out another release of Microsoft Dynamics GP in October. And I'm going to be sharing a bunch of other great news that I'm sure you'll be glad to hear about. So as I said, I've been working in the community here for, let's see, since 1994. So we won't say how many years. And so I thought I'd just share with you some of the things that I hear from my friends out in the community. The first thing is that we were given the announcement that Microsoft is putting out a new lifecycle policy. So just like with Word or Excel or Outlook or any of the other Microsoft products, as you consume a new version, instead of it saying like Microsoft Dynamics GP 2013 or 2008 or 2018, it's actually just going to say Microsoft Dynamics GP. You can always look at the version, but what that does is that in those fixed versions, they were supported for a certain number of years. In the modern life cycle, what you'll see if you go out to the link and read about the life cycle is that as a release is consumed into your environment, you are automatically going to be supported, right? So I'll show you a slide in a moment. But what that means is that for Microsoft Dynamics GP, it's the same as the other Microsoft Dynamics products like 365. In fact, since 2019, Microsoft has said, here's the life cycle for GP, here's the life cycle for Dynamics 365, and they've matched. So if you're hearing that some people are telling you GP is going away and this one is continuing, that's incorrect news, false news. So let's talk about what this modern life cycle gives you. Each year, Microsoft puts out about 3 releases of GP. Typically, in the beginning of the year, we are told that here are the new tax updates that are coming, right? So in June, you get tax updates, you get some regulatory changes, maybe some other hot fixes that Microsoft has put in the product. And then at the end of the year, so the December update is also tax changes, payroll taxes, closing year functionality that you need. But right in about October is when the new features get rolled out. So each year you're getting 3 releases. And as you consume those, Microsoft is saying, okay, we are going to support you. So if you look at their new modern life cycle, which is at the bottom, it shows the Microsoft Dynamics GP is going out to 2028, where the other releases, if you see like 2013, it's already past the extended support, where GP 2018 and 18 R2 will be supported through 2023 in your regular support system cycle, but then you're going to have to go into extended support if you don't consume these annual upgrades, right? So great news for the GP community. We are going to have some new releases coming and be supported for years into the future. So now let's talk about what is in those releases. Microsoft has been fantastic about giving us a link. So again, I'm going to go out to the internet and I'm going to pull up a page. It looks at first like it's talking about Dynamics 365, but in reality, that link goes to GP. And this is an area that as a user or as a partner, or even as somebody in Microsoft, I can go out and I can suggest that they do something different with GP. So if I go back over to my slide deck, you'll see that there was something here. I said, let me put in a suggestion that I want. One of my customers asked me, not I want, but one of my customers said, it'd be really great if this screen just refreshed automatically. So I went out to the website and I'm going to show you that I put a suggestion in because I can go and search for the suggestions that I've put out here. So here's one that I've put out. It's going to look at it and it's going to say, look, I already had 4 of my friends. And I just did this the other day, but I had 4 of my friends that said, yeah, that looks like a good idea, right? So as Microsoft is getting ready for new releases, they look out here on this IDEA website. And if you do an advanced search on that website, you can see that there are all these different statuses, right? Maybe it's under review, or it's declined, or it's planned. And if I go out here and I say, okay, let's see the GP features that are planned, you're seeing that here's some safe pay information that is planned. So they are gonna get into release at some point. I don't know exactly when, it doesn't tell me that, but it's exciting news, right? I can already see what's in there. And I can already look and see things like those that were completed and rolled out to the community already, right? So if I looked at those, then you would see the ones that are already in the system. So here, as I said, I created this a few days ago. I told a few friends and they all went out and voted for it. When I looked and showed you the things that are planned, I read about them and I'm like, ooh, that means they're coming. So I'm going to show you some of these things that I don't know that they're in this release. I know that Microsoft's working on them. So you can tell people, you know, they're listening. Here's something that's going to happen. So let's talk about a feature that was just put in the last release. And it was my favorite new feature. I know it seems small, but if I go over to GP, I'll show you in a minute. When I inquire, either in payables or in receivables, it used to be that you'd pull up a vendor or customer, you'd pull up the information, you'd wait for it redisplay. And if I was looking for the newest document, I'd either have to put a date range in, or I'd have to scroll all the way to the bottom because they are oldest documents first. So Microsoft has put an option. Do you want something to show descending or ascending? And so I'll show you that in GP. But I love this feature. There's just something missing. And that's that I can't tell the system to save my settings so that every time I open this window, it's set to the ones that I would like. And so this was one that said planned. So it looks like it's coming. Now, as a workaround, I know that if you've attended my sessions or maybe even my good friend Amber's sessions, we've talked about creating little macros. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that because, of course, you know, we're in GP. We want to see what we can do. We want to see the product. So I'm in GP. It happens to be in the background version 18.3. And if I go to transaction by vendor and I start looking around, instead of putting the vendor ID in first, I put it in last so that while I'm doing these, it's not trying to look up the information. So I'm going to say, I don't need to see history. I'm going to look at it, document date, descending, and then I'm going to say, ooh, let's go find my vendor. So I find my vendor, I look at it, and now I'm only seeing things that are in work or in open, and it's quickly scanning through because I'm not having to wait for it to go through all of the historical information. Now, if I wanted that to be put into a macro, I'll show you what that means. So if I attach a macro and I put it on my little home screen, when I just click on it, or even if I hit a function key 7, because that's what I set up, it's going to open up that window, change the sorting automatically for me. So within GP, you could do this now. And I'll just show you really quickly how I went about doing that. If you look behind the scenes here, I've got this little shortcut. And you can add your own shortcuts on here, right? I can just say it's a macro. I can browse out and I can find my little macro that's called vendor inquiry. And then I can tell it, you know, what my name is going to be. So over here, I've said open AR inquiry, and I can even select a keyboard shortcut for that. So let's say that I want to record one. How do I go about doing that? I'm going to come up. I'm not going to open up the screen until I start recording because that's the whole idea. I want it to open the screen. So I'm going to go to my Microsoft Dynamics dropdown, Tools, Macro, and I'm going to record. And it's going to ask me, where do you want to record this? So I've got all these shortcuts on my desktop, but I can have them out in a shared location if I wanted this shared among other users and be able to put the shortcut on their system. So we'll just say this is the DynamicsCon demo. And whatever I do, it's going to then record these keystrokes. So I'll do the one that I had set up. So inquiry, purchasing, transaction by vendor. I'm going to unclick history. Instead, I could do like an applied amount descending. So I want to see the ones that I owe the most to. And then I'm going to hit the lookup. And now I'm going to go ahead and say tools, macro, and stop record. Okay. So if I close all this and I just say, let's try out that macro, I can say, let's play a macro. And I've got my DynamicsCon demo and it opens it all up, right? So then if I want to put that on the shortcut, you already saw how I do that. I right click, I add it to the shortcut, and voila, I've got something opened the way that I want it to be opened. But wouldn't it be nice if there was just a save button somewhere under user preferences? That's what we're hoping for in the near future. All right, the next thing. One of the other ones that said it's planned is all-in-one viewers to save the settings. So the same type of thing. If I'm in GP and I go look at a customer, so I'm going to go to my sales menus, and I like showing you how I get around the system. If I'm going to look at something, I usually bring this up so I can see all my choices. I look for receivables by customer. And let's say I'm talking to a customer and they're asking me about a particular, invoice, and I can actually go to all-in-one viewer from here. So some people don't realize that I could do that. Not the problem, but the shortcoming of this screen is that if I wanted to see things like, did that invoice come from a back order or an order, I would have to come out here and make sure that I click these little check boxes. It'll save them for this session, but if I didn't click any of these in this session, it wouldn't know that I wanted to save all these, like show me everything, right? So wouldn't it be nice if that was the case, that I could say, show me, have this remember, so that the next time I open up this screen, everything is going to show. So let's kind of do that again. So let's say that I have this historical invoice, and instead of zooming down and trying to figure out which documents attach to it, if I go to the all-in-one viewer, it's already pulled up that customer with that document number, and hey, look, that payment is applied to it. So then I can see that it was applied to two things, right? So let's take another look. Instead of it just doing that, let's say I want to see that payment and I want you to show me the documents applied. Well, here is that other charge. It was a service invoice. And then here is my regular invoice. So in case you didn't know about all-in-one viewers, I like to show features that are not necessarily new, but are out there for you and can be incorporated. So I'm hoping that the all-in-one setting is going to be something that's coming out soon, because it says it's planned. So I'm not going to go into this one, but another thing that said it was planned was that SafePay is going to pull the check information in payroll also. And what that means is right now, when you do a SafePay check and you have a vendor name, but you have a check name, it's actually going to show you the check name. It used to always just show the vendor name, and people wanted that same type of thing for on payroll checks. Is it the name of the person, or is it the name that is used on the check? Okay, so again, it's very important that number one, you put your ideas out there on the idea website, and then you vote for friends. And then I love that even Terry Healy, who's product manager over at Microsoft for Dynamics, she'll put ideas out there because she's trying to see, what does the community want? Do you want this feature? If nobody cares about it, why are they going to take the time to do something that maybe doesn't seem, very important to people, that they'll escalate other things to the top? So, help a girl out, go vote for my ideas, maybe go see what Terry has to say, but just wanted you to know that. So here is the release that was released in October of 2020, because that was the big feature release. And this is the slide that Microsoft showed, right? Here are all the things. So I like to show my customers it in a different way, right? There are features that when you put the release in, that even if you don't turn them on, they're auto-enabled, right? So here are some features, and we'll look at a couple of them, that when you put this latest release in, it automatically says, yep, you're going to get this. You want it, it's there. But then there are other features that maybe you want to phase in. So maybe they're there, maybe you need to turn on some things, but they take a little bit more work. And then there are features that you didn't really ask for, but you needed them because they are federal requirements, like those lovely 1099 NEC changes that we had roll in, right? Or that really we're not supposed to show social security numbers. So Microsoft added that to the product. And then there are those that, again, might take a little bit of scheduling or work to set up, but they're great quick wins for your users. So the planning ones I thought would take a little bit more to talk to your users, make sure that you know what you're going to do with them, where maybe the system quick wins are things that a couple people can use and maybe not everybody has to be even affected by them. So let's chat about a couple of these. For the features that are auto-enabled, right? If you go to print documents, I'm going to skip the first one because we're going to go through it. When you print sales documents, there's a new button that says, do you want to print all of them, not just one in a batch, right? So you can print all the documents in a batch, whether or not you're emailing them. So it used to be that it emailed or it printed, but maybe you want a copy of each of them to file away. Don't know why you want that these days, but we want to save the trees. Another one is the smart list columns that now you can choose to remove or add a lot at a time. You could always add them, but now when you have them in your smart list, you can move them up and down a bunch at a time instead of one at a time. So it's those type of things. For the AP description, I'm going to show you that. But for importing credit cards, there's a little bit of setup. You have to work with your credit card, not your company, but you just have to work to download the type of file that you need. And then it's right out there for you to use. Federal requirements to NEC, we know that automatically when you upgraded to the last version of GP, that if you had a type miscellaneous box 7, it automatically transferred to the NEC box 1. So things that automatically went in, but you had to have. And then again, the system quick wins, we always had, or not always, in the last 4 releases, we had the ability to do a copy and paste from Excel for a journal entry. And now you have that same capability in the AP transactions. And so I did a session back in whenever the last one of these DynamicsCon conferences were held. So you could go look back at that. I went through a lot of these in detail. So let's talk about the things that automatically are there, but maybe you need to tailor it. So here we've got the financial setup general ledger. The reason I'm showing that is because if you go into a journal entry screen and you pull it up in the newest release, the one in 2020, that's called 18.3 in the background. If you just pull that up, there are going to be 2 new fields out there, and they're going to be labeled user defined 1 and 2. But if you, for your organization, want your people to know what you put in that field, you're going to go to the setup screen in General Ledger, go to the very bottom here to say, what do you want these to be called? So I've said DynamicsCon 1 and 2. And now when I pull up this screen, it's showing it. So let's just pop into GP so that you see that that's true. And when I'm talking about, when I open this journal entry screen, I now have these 2 fields that are populated. And that's because in my GL setup screen over here at the bottom, I changed the name. So I can change it to whatever I want. Let's say that you want to, tell people to put a certain description for, something that you're using within your corporation, then you would label it that. So then there's the opposite type of field. So if I go into payables transactions and I pull up my AP entry screen for invoices, it's only going to show the original description that you've seen in the prior releases. So if you want a new field to be right below this, then you need to go into payables management setup and click on this one that says enable the long description. And then when you come into the payable screen, you'll have a second description. And then that description can appear in reports if you want to add it, in smart lists if you want to add it there. It does automatically show if you do a payment for an invoice and it's a manual payment and you print that check right away, then it's going to show on there. So kind of be warned that it'll show in there, but that's initially what people had requested, is they wanted kind of a longer description to say why they were paying that invoice right away. So again, this is a feature that if you don't turn it on, it's not going to have this long description out there. You don't get to name what it's called. You just get to decide to turn it on. Okay. So how do you know what all the new features are, right? There's several resources I'm going to show you, but I worked with a friend of mine, David Laster, and we created a spreadsheet. And I'm going to talk about this. If I'll show you the spreadsheet, I'm going to share it with the community. So if Molly and team will put it out on the website later, you'll get it. We've got 200 and I was going to say 209, but we've got some header fields. So 208 new features that are listed in here. And those features go all the way back to 2015, that release. And then they're rolling forward by each release number. And so once we get this next release, which I'm assuming it's going to be called 18.4 in the background, right? But I'm not sure of the coding name yet because we don't have that release, but it will also incorporate those new ones once we get them. And in this spreadsheet, David did really all of the heavy lifting. I just did mostly fact checking and testing around, and then maybe said to describe something different, but he really did all the heavy lifting. So it says, here's the version. What module is it in? Right? Security, payables. What would we call that? Maybe what's the feature name called for, 10 miscellaneous form updates for 1099s or the NEC, and then a little bit longer of a description if you didn't get it by those 10 words. And then finally, this last one is super exciting because it's actually the link back to the documentation that Microsoft wrote, so Terry Healy and her folks, about that feature. And so we wanted to make sure that you got all of the information that you needed about that new feature. So in this spreadsheet, you can sort and filter by whatever areas you want, go out there and get the explanations. Now, I've written a lot of documentation in the past, so I love to share documentation when I know it's out there. So that's the first thing, is we can help you out there. Now, what is coming? I'm sworn to secrecy. So I can just share with you things that by being in the IDEA website, there might be those in this release. It might not make this release. It might be in the next. But I did talk to Terry Healy, and what she said that I could share are things like, we need you to upgrade, right? Why do we need you to upgrade and not stay on the release? Because everything seems to be fine. And the first thing is in the older versions of SQL. So if you're running in, GP 2013 and you're running SQL 2012, that those are where the hackers are looking to get in. In the newer versions of SQL, Microsoft has really clamped down on, not being able to get into those systems. So not necessarily anything to do with GP, but that system software of SQL and Windows and things like that, right? Microsoft wants you to get current and stay current so that you can be supported off until 2028 if you wanted to. At this point, if you're on GP 2016, you're not going to get another update. So any kind of form changes or tax changes that are necessary, your users are going to have to go into the tables themselves to update them, or go into Report Writer to modify, and hopefully you can get through that. But the idea is you need to upgrade. Now this year, if you're on, any version of 2018, you'll get a year-end update, but then the newest version will go out there, the one that just says GP on it, will go out there past 2023, but the ones that say GP 2018 right there on the splash screen, you're only going to get new releases through 2023. And then Well, I've already said the last one. So this was all in quotes because it was from Terry Healy. One thing we believe is coming. So if you look out in kind of the federal government changes, they're considering making another change to that NEC form and adding a third part. So depending on that, you might need to plug in that year-end update to get that change. So whether you're on any release of 2018, you're fine. You can consume that. Or, maybe you're looking out there to use 1099 Pro or something if you don't want to update. But those are things that we know are coming. So another thing, if you don't know, in GP, if I go to my home screen and I go, well, I guess I didn't have to go to my home screen. I could just be anywhere. And I hit the little question mark and I hit what's new. I could go see, oh, I have it blocked right now, but I could go see what's new. Or on my home screen, there's a little area that is called Connect. And right now that area is set to go to the year-end updates because that was the last big thing that people were asking of Microsoft, right? What are all the things I need to do for year-end closing? But what's going to happen is when Microsoft releases, not when they actually do the release, but when they're preparing to release, so in the next month, they're going to prepare to release the next version of GP. So in this little area, it's going to say what's new. So if you don't have that turned on, you can go to customize this page and click on this little connect, right? And for that user, it will put that on their home screen. So if you don't want everybody in your organization to have it, but you want the managers to kind of know what's coming, that's a quick link. Or you can look at things like, my presentation and go out there and see what's new. And so in that area, once you get out to what's new, you'll be able to see what's new in October 2021. It'll show the previous ones. And then you're back to all of those resources that we showed you in this little spreadsheet, right? So this is that area. And here's what's new in 2020. And I can get all of the financial enhancements, all the distribution enhancements. So I really encourage your team to go out there and see what's out there. As I said, the new blog series will probably start sometime in September, or at least it'll be posted in September. So last year, here was kind of something that she posted on September 16th. This is Terry Healy again, my favorite gal I like to talk about. And it had links to all of the things you would know about an upgrade, right? The system requirements that you're going to have to start getting together ahead of time, things like your SQL Server being the newest version, Microsoft Windows being the newest version, what's new, any upgrade hot topics. So all of these links would be out there. And then this little blog series that would go through all of the different features that are coming. Okay. Now, I'm recording this ahead of time. And so I'm sure that you've had questions, and I should have said this at the beginning. I would love for you to go into the chat screen and type questions that you have. And we've got time at the end of my presentation here that I can go through and I can answer questions. But if at the time of this airing that these things are available, I will put it in the chat for you and say, hey, look, these are some of the new features that they've already told us about. Here's the blog series, things like that. So now, even if you are not ready to upgrade right now, or you've upgraded recently and you're not going to consume the very newest release, there are a ton of new features to your users, right? So not new to GP, but to your team. And so I wanted to just share with you a few of the items that all of my customers right now are rolling out to all their people. So I'm going to show you them, and then we'll talk about a few of them and why I like them and why my clients are interested in rolling them out to their team, right? So if you look at this list, I showed you a little bit about the homepage settings that I could customize and say the connect page and show you what's new. But if you've been to any of my sessions in the past, I've talked about putting shortcuts and macros, even that macro I showed you for opening up the payables transaction. I put those on my homepage. I can have some smart lists with reminders. So I'm just going to go out to my homepage for a moment. And I have these things, quick links. I'm going to put, I like to rearrange all the time, but I've got some out here, right? I've got these 1099s with missing tax registration numbers. So I see this smart list and there was a warning. Hey, there were 4 that you need to go out there and look at. So if I go look at this vendor, I go to options and I put in my tax registration number, maybe I just put it in the wrong field. And if I save and I either refresh this page, so I'll show you here, it's going to go down to 3. And then if I go ahead and refresh my home page, you'll see that this is going to change to 3. It also changes where it's showing, but now I have 3, right? So I always like to show people how to create these. And even if you're not, consuming a new release, work with your partner and figure out, how do I get to a smart list? How do I go to favorites and see that I've got this little favorite and reminder? So that's what that was. It was a reminder. And that reminder, I'm going to just put something here so that I can show you. And then I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to go out to favorites. I'm going to put a little 3 at the end just so that I can show you. I'm going to hit reminder and it'll say, when do you want me to show this on your homepage? And I'm going to say when the number of records is greater than 0, right? And I can say display it as a little Q. So that was the piece of paper. Or I can just say, nope, just put it in the list. And the reason that this is showing like this is because I have a search that says, as long as the tax type, the 1099 type, is not a 1099, right? So I want you to show it when it's any of these other 4. So if it's not a 1099, meaning a double negative, it is, and that tax registration number is blank, show me it, right? I could also go out to columns and I can add and say, show me some other fields. Maybe I want the account number that I have with the vendor. Maybe I want, some other things for that vendor to show. I can add them. And this is where I'm showing you another feature of the bulk edit, right? So if I wanted to move these fields to the beginning, I can click multiple fields now and say, go to the top. And now they all go to the top. Or if I didn't need some fields, right? I didn't need this. I didn't need user defined to anymore. I can remove both those fields at the same time. And then I've got my other fields. So whatever it is that you want to change, you can change in bulk, right? Okay, so let's go back and see what else there is. Smart List Export Solutions, that is crazy good. If I go to Smart List, and I'm not going to show you exactly how this runs, but when I have a Smart List and I go to finance, or I'm not going to show you exactly how to set it up, but let's say that I've got some fields here and I want to export this out to Excel. Well, you'll see here that I could just do a quick export, but if I just click on this thing here, it's going to export it. It's going to export it, and it's going to run these little macros that I have to say, oh, make this bold, make this red, change this date, because the initial Excel quick export, if I ran that, it's just a bunch of fields with no formatting, right? So I've formatted these dates. Maybe I've sorted it. I've put, bold and everything else. And the way that I did that is through something called Export Solutions. And if I go out here and I show you that I've got a little Microsoft Excel spreadsheet out here, and it's this one. And that under my developer tab, I've got a macro, and that macro is all of the things that I did. So I recorded a macro similar to how I recorded it in GP in the very beginning. That's how you're going to record it. So if you don't know about export solutions, have your partner work with you or ask somebody in the community to give you some hints. But this is saying, I want you to automatically format my report, my Excel export report, right? Okay. Another person that I have to think in the community is John Arnold. He wrote this fantastic feature rich thing called the replicator. And so I've got a little demo. We'll see if it runs. Sometimes I use up all of my things, but you'll see I just am running this. And this is going through all of my customers who had, I'm actually unapplying, but I can have it run it at the beginning. I've got great customers that I can still use at the end. I've got some ones that didn't, so it stopped running. But I can go through and I can say, pull up a customer, pull up a payment, and I need you to auto apply something. So yeah, that document didn't exist anymore because I got rid of it. But so the idea of this macro rich feature is that it does a macro, it plays it over and over again for me. And if I have an issue, it'll tell me, oh, I don't have that document. Again, I've put it into history. I can't unapply it. So it's telling me it. But the replicator by John Arnold allows me to do that. So if you've never worked with the replicator, I'm going to just open it up. John has a link out there, and basically you just cut and paste your macros. So similar to the macro that I had that maybe said, you know, open up this window, resort it, do that. And then all of the times that you're putting keystrokes in there and you're then entering in an information, like when I was doing my apply or unapply, I had the information for which customer and which document number, right? So I took a smart list and I ran it to say, give me everybody who had some outstanding amounts to be applied in accounts receivable. And then I said, here are the customers, here are the document numbers. And now I'm going to use my little macro and I'm going to replicate it, meaning run it over and over again. And I'm going to hook it to GP, which was what I did over here. Gilman, I didn't want to run it. I just wanted to show you it. And I said, here, run this macro, right? So it's pointing to the macro. And it's now an extended macro that goes through each of those customers. So if you want help in learning how to run the replicator, you can go out and look for John Arnold Replicator. He has a PowerPoint out there, or talk to your partner. Hopefully they'll use it like I do. Okay. And then a couple of the other things I'm just going to list. You know that in the earlier version I mentioned, 2016, that you can do GL paste, right? You can do AP paste now in the newest one. So copy and paste from an Excel spreadsheet. You can do credit cards. So all of these features have been in the system now for over a year, but these are the things that my customers are now rolling out, especially things like EFTs, right? Because nobody is in the office to print checks. So look at all of the features that are out there and let's get you taking advantage of them, right? So I'm going to open up the chat and ask you to tell me, what do you want to see? Or do I have any more information now that it's closer to the release date? Or, hey, you know, you went through this one thing. Can you explain it a little bit more? I'm not here to take customers away from other partners. I'm here to tell you, work with your partner, or if you're a partner and you want some hints on some of the things that I'm doing in the community with my customers, we'd love to share that with you. So hopefully you've learned something. Again, thank you for voting for this session, and hopefully we'll see you soon in person. I know that they just announced something in November, so maybe we'll see you in Anaheim. Talk to you soon, guys. Thanks. Here to answer some questions if you'd like. Bright and early, you can kind of see out there, the sun's almost coming up, but I know a lot of the questions got answered. I should have saved some for the live session, but that's okay. We can answer anything you want now. The big thing I think is that Terry Healy has now posted the session, or the not the session, the blog that says here's what's new and coming in the next release. She doesn't have the particular details, but she does have some upgrade like requirements for system. She has the dates that she's going to be posting everything. She has some like do's and don'ts about your environment. So I definitely think that it's worth going out to that link that I put already in the chat. And then some of the other things that you can take advantage of when you're watching the session is like look up, Replicator and John Arnold, and you'll be able to take advantage of that little kind of, it's like an integration tool. Basically, it's running a macro, but you can import into existing records, or you can create records as you're running the replicator. So that's something that you can look into. And then hopefully you found that some of the features I showed from the last release, GP, I guess we call it 2020, is out there. So you could go and replay this later when it gets posted on YouTube, and you could go through some of the features there. Many of the features that I even showed are older. So some of the things like recording the macro to open up a window, and then doing the smart list reminders. You could do some of those things if you don't take advantage of them now. So does anybody have any other questions? Oh, look, I should have scrolled. You could use the custom post integration in eConnect stored procedure to get long descriptions into the transaction. My friend David Musgrave says, yes. And I know that he could help you out in the community if you don't know how to do that. It says, will there be a way to replay the session from the beginning? Good question by Roxanne. So in the next week, DynamicsCon will be posting which sessions are live already, and you could go and replay the sessions. And Kevin, yes, hi Kevin. He says it's early here too. Yes, I might have said that a few times. I am not a morning person, I'm a night person. So David is up in or down in Australia, and it's 11:30 at night there. And so definitely it is early here, late there. I might enjoy the late one better. What is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? It is to live life to the fullest every single day. That is the answer to life, because we're here and we need to. Were you freaking out when the video stopped playing? No, what makes you say that? I was like calling the director going, excuse me. So I thank you guys for hanging in there during those, I think it was like 4 or 5 minutes that the session just stopped. So thank you for that. And let's see, the virtual watch party is found on the left mark. Oh yeah. So once we're done with this session, I encourage you guys to go out to the watch parties, especially for the Dynamics GP. And it says turn on your camera and microphone, and we'll be able to have discussions and actually see each other in real time. A serious question: what is your favorite feature from the 18.3 release? Okay, so silly, but I loved when in AP and AR inquiry screens, like AP inquiry by vendor and AR inquiry by customer, where you could do this sort descending by date. So you could see the newest documents at the top. That was my favorite. And then spoiler alert, there is something more coming for those features in the next release, but I'm sworn to secrecy, and Terry Healy will never tell me anything new that's coming early if I tell you guys that. So yeah, in 18.3, it's seriously that. Things like Sean, I think you were the one that said, oh, when you print a screen, do full screen, right? So I don't have to always hit the little maximize button to see the rest of my report. So things like that, right? I know back in like version 2016, when we got the capability to print to any printer, that was unbelievable, right? It's things like that that users will use all day long, every day. So I like those features. DynamicsCon will publish videos. Yes, David, that is true. To YouTube, that's true. You can also see past sessions there. I'm just reading down the chat now. Does the replicator work with E1 Solutions Extender? So let's see. That's a good question. It should definitely, because if you're pulling up a window that has extender fields in it, it's just running a macro. So Kevin, great question. Yes, it will. Roxanne, the session recordings. Oh, look, somebody put out the YouTube/seed/DynamicsCon. That is definitely where you're going to see the recordings. So you could go out there. And then GP Power Tools can disable the full screen print output and remember exact size you want. So if you don't like the feature, David thinks that will work. If you don't like the feature of opening full screen, then I know in the Power Tools that it will remember the screen size that you want for certain things. So I think that's what he is getting at. And I think we have just maybe a couple minutes, 2 minutes. Yeah, 6:52. So 3 minutes left. Let's see if I can scroll back down and see if anybody has anything. I thank you guys all for being so chatty, because otherwise I would have probably just told you more about what might be coming. But yeah, I hope that you'll go out to the link that I had put up above, and that if you go into your Dynamics GP right now and you went up to the right-hand side where it says customize this page, and you hit the connect checkbox and you open that screen up, what's going to show now is the what's coming in the Dynamics GP 2021 October release. And so you'll have that blog, and that's where I said Terry Healy put all of the items about, you know, what the system requirements are and what some things to do before you upgrade. And then there is a section that says what's new, and it's not a live link yet. And it says the 22nd. So what's today? Monday. So on Wednesday, that link goes live and you'll be able to actually know all of the fun things that are in the new release. But it is nice that we are getting new releases. I know that you could follow along and just type in like the life cycle, modern life cycle for Dynamics GP, and you'll see that you're good till 2028 if you keep upgrading to the newest releases. The macro, Dave, the macro will work if the extender window is the same one. So make sure no other extender windows are open when you record and play. Come to the GP virtual watch party. That's right. Right after this, you have like almost 8 minutes between the sessions. So let's go over to the GP virtual watch party. I have to sign off, guys. Love you all, honestly. Okay. Bye. Let's go to the GP watch party.